cryptocurrencies are not just about money. They used math to make it unhackable. It's really a story about what kind of value something carries with it. It's a shared perception.
So far, we've put cryptocurrency into the context of banking and opportunities and risks of making or losing money. But crypto's about much more than currency. We broke this conversation into two parts. Today, we cover the philosophical underpinnings of this whole damn thing. Let's get into it. Welcome to Coloring Crypto. Let's shed some light on the blockchain cryptocurrency world. Here's Brooks Jordan.
My interest really comes out of my community work. So I'm, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been part of a consulting company that's a partner for a company based in Silicon Valley called Jive Software. There's a lot of talk these days about Slack, about Facebook's workplace and that kind of thing, but Jive has really helped create that whole market. So in my work in digital community, there's just sort of an obvious question like, what's the next level of this in terms of both, how the internet will work, how it will become more open or closed, and how people will be connected to one another. And so the blockchain, all the peer-to-peer connections that are possible, the decentralization, and then sort of the novel aspect that I don't think many of us were expecting unless they were tracking this from very early on was the whole crypto part. On that part of it, I'm personally interested in it and investing in it, but I think one thing that really needs to be uncovered by all of us is how the value exchange on these decentralized networks on the blockchain can help enable community and all the different use cases that you could apply to peer-to-peer exchange and to community, and at least in the way that I think about community digitally and so forth. So that's kind of my interest is how does the blockchain sort of enable the next level of community, both for businesses and socially, things that we haven't even tapped into yet.
How would you define cryptocurrency? Like, what is that?
Cryptocurrency is something that actually sits on top of the blockchain. The blockchain is just the ability to be a ledger and to track the transactions between people, but you have to have something that will carry the value of that transaction. It's not just currencies that allow for that, but that's sort of the main sort of vehicle for exchanging value. So if you're making something or creating something that someone else would find valuable, then you have the ability to use a token to exchange that with someone in a way that can be tracked and sort of verified by this blockchain. So cryptocurrencies are not just about money, even though that's how we normally think of currencies. It's really the fundamental part of it that's really interesting, I think, is just about exchanging value.
How would you define money? And then how would you say like cryptocurrency is money or can be money?
Yeah, I mean, I don't pretend to be the sort of historian on money, but I think you can think about it in a common sense way. And certainly I've heard others very knowledgeable about it, talk about it and say some really interesting things about it. For example, like in sort of tribal times, tattoos and things that a given person would wear, like a shell necklace, would really indicate things that they had of value and things that were in their possession or properties or what have you. The way they would signal that to someone else was through some kind of implement or some kind of something they were wearing. And I think that's just really what money comes down to, right? It's a shared perception of what something is that may indicate, it may be pointing to something else that has value, like livestock or some kind of real estate or something like that, but everyone agrees that thing that someone has indicates value. And so these cryptocurrencies are kind of the same thing. It's really a story about what kind of value something carries with it. And it's just amazing, the current financial community and the people who are very committed to cryptocurrencies, to blockchain, the conversation they're sort of having back and forth about what is the basis for saying that, say, Bitcoin actually has value and is not just a bubble or not just some kind of story that people are making up. And whereas dollars or fiat currency actually does have some kind of fundamental value.
Just for our listeners, fiat currency is what?
Yeah, well, I mean, fiat really is defining the money that we use as something that is just made up, right? It's sort of because it's not tied to something specific. It's really just something that a government, a nation will say, this is what we're defining as our money, and then we're going to be able to create as much of it or as little of it as we want. It's not grounded, say, as it used to be in the 70s to the gold standard or anything like that. And so the people who are very involved in this world refer to that kind of money as fiat.
You're kind of saying money is something that we all just agree upon has a value, but how can a computer or some code create a currency of value?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it in part has to do with how this all got started. And there's a couple of elements that allow for it. When the 2008 financial crisis happened, in that same moment, Bitcoin was created, the blockchain was created, and it in part was possible because they used math to define cryptocurrency and to make it unhackable by any particular person or any entity. So it's really the cryptography that they use to define this money and then record it on the blockchain in a way that no one else can come in and corrupt. Part of it also is the fact that the internet has matured to a certain place where you can, have everyone in this computer network, in this blockchain, say for Bitcoin, can have a copy of that ledger that's recording all of the transactions of say, Bitcoin. And so it's the fact that everybody has it. It's the fact that you're using math to define and protect the integrity of those transactions and of your own ownership of some subset of those coins. That's really what it comes down to: math and very strong network protocols and the conceptual realization that in order for this blockchain not to be hacked, everyone has to own a copy of it.
Tell me the story of what happened between when you first heard of cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or the blockchain to the time, and how long was it, and what was your process, and what was the revelation to when you first bought your first bit of cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because, those light bulbs, I think, for most of us who are excited about this really did go off one day. I mean, so in my work, as I described with sort of enterprise level communities, I certainly am getting a lot of information from a lot of different places about the future and about trends and about various things. And so I've heard about blockchain and Bitcoin in particular for years and years, but kind of rose up to sort of another level of awareness around 2010, and then people started to invest in it in small ways. But everyone pretty much perceived it, except for the very few, as a toy, right? You really just thought, and people will joke now that you would use Bitcoin to buy pizzas and to and you would share it with friends. You would almost throw it away because it was really felt like a toy. And so for years, in between 2010 and 2014, 15, I really just perceived it like that. I definitely thought, oh wow, I should really pay more attention to that, get involved in it. But didn't. But then, sort of at the end of 2015 into 2016, it became clear that it was starting to be a very legitimate thing. It started to increase in value, so you could absolutely see that it was actually starting to have relative value to dollars and other fiat currencies. It's super simple for someone who just really doesn't know anything about it to get involved because, I mean, I'm going to call out one company But there are a couple others and similarly easy ways to do this. But so Coinbase is a very well-funded company, really backed and run by very smart and legitimate people, and they've built a great system both for buying three of the top cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Ethereum or Ether, and Litecoin. And as importantly, they've made it super secure. So they have two-factor authentication. They have what's called a vault that you can put these coins in that makes them extra secure. Because part of the sort of the issue that everyone's dealing with is that you can gain these currencies fairly easily, but you can also lose them because people can come in and take them from you in a way that you don't expect, or you can lose them or that kind of thing. So if Fern were to go to just Coinbase.com, she would be able to just sign up for an account and add her debit or credit card or put some money in from her bank account and purchase some fractional parts of these coins. So even though Bitcoin is worth, in the thousands of dollars right now, she can purchase, $25 worth or $100 worth, because the math piece of this allows you to buy, very small pieces of each coin.
And Coinbase is across the board. Everybody's sort of said Coinbase is the place for a beginner to start. And just to explain it to newbies, like Coinbase is not Bitcoin. It's not these. It's a. How would you describe this? What is this company? What exactly is this? Is Coinbase the company?
They're providing a wallet for each of these coins, which is just a conceptual way, like we all understand what a wallet is. It's just a place where they have the ability to purchase coins on the open market, and they've created an interface for you to do that in basically one step. You just if you have your money available, you just type in the amount of dollars you want to spend on a given coin, and then it just purchases it for you, Bitcoin, for example, off of that blockchain. So you don't even have to think about how it's doing it, but it's just sending out the request and then pulling the money back in. The risks are super important. You should be putting money into this that you can absolutely lose. And it's not so much that I feel that way because you are going to lose that money, but this is a very new area. And there's all kinds of things that are happening that are going to affect the value of these coins. So it's not like buying a stock in a known company. It's not like buying anything we've really ever experienced. But that said, it's not risky in the sense that some people talk about it, which is that this is just a bubble, that this is just something that people are making up. And, at some point, it's going to just pop and completely go away. I mean, I don't believe that at all. I feel like this is here to stay, and you just have to be really careful. And I think mostly just only invest in it what you can absolutely lose. So if you take that approach, then I feel like you could do really well over time.
So Bitcoin is like the leader right now. Bitcoin is the largest valued cryptocurrency, first on the market. And as I began to learn about the basics of it, I'm hearing, that Bitcoin is slow, and there's a lot of sort of weaknesses in the technology and the algorithm. Like, why wouldn't, what are the barriers to entry? Why wouldn't a coin come along with this math algorithm technology that is just 10 times faster, 10 times better, 10 times more secure, and just overtake Bitcoin, and Bitcoin plummets and this next one sort of takes off?
And that could happen. That could happen. And I think that even something like Ethereum, which came along, in say 2015, 2016, could be that new leader. And so Bitcoin, even with the limitations of the blockchain that you mentioned, it's the speed of transactions, the scalability. There's some real limitations there, but the core development team, for this open source, blockchain, they're working out those issues, and they're working on it and evolving what the blockchain for Bitcoin can do and Bitcoin itself. So it is evolving and making progress, but it has so much more momentum than any other coin, and it's almost become not so much something that people will use necessarily for this exchange of value that I mentioned, but more what's being thought of as a store of value. So it'll just become kind of the foundational coin that people have, much like gold.
We're going to pause right there. That was part one. Did you hear what he just said? That Bitcoin would be held onto like gold. This is crazy. This whole thing needs a little bit of light. That's why we're here. Send me your questions on Twitter at Coloring Crypto, or leave us a message on our listener wallet. Call 925-238-3724.
Coloring Crypto. Subscribe now.